Jeremiah part 7. We'll start here at verse 32 6. And yep, everything but the lights. No, this is he's buying the land so he can have it after the war. Redemption, it's not being redeemed. They don't have the land anymore, but it just says that the ownership could probably be his, but it's after the war. Now it comes not possession, but ownership, not redemption, but recovery from war. This is kind of stipulating what I meant by up here, the war, that it's after the war that he's recovering it from. Not the word. It was done by why they knew this was done, knowing this was him buying the land was to do this. So purchase conditions, when you read it, there's other things that would have been there other than just the purchase. That kindness, love kindness. This should have been changed just to love. It will be at some time. Greatness. These verses were not used. By leading, not bringing, by leading your. He led them, and this is not with signs, but by a cloud and a pillar of fire at night. Not law, but commands. I was getting prepared for doing the search on the word famine. It's not, it's disaster is a better word. Into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar and the Chaldeans. So that's, it seems like the Chaldeans sided with Babylon instead of fighting with them. So they were kept as a people, and then they were used to come to Jerusalem as well. So it has to be into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar and the hands of Chaldeans. The word famine, I moved from here over to here because famine hurt first and then the sword. Now, yes, they went out to battle. They were killed by them in the sword, but here we're talking about giving them into the hands, and I'm figuring this is the final answer. And there was famine inside the fortress or cities that were fortified for lack of water as well. Wow. Burned down. Not incense, but there were sacrifices. Remember, you have to think this has been going on since before, since Egypt's time anyway. So that they had sacrifices and then they would eat the sacrifice. And this was a practice by the god Ra, Egyptian god Ra, sun god. So need to have sacrifices to be correct. And I'm using the titles gods, Ra, and two other gods. And this I just noticed real quick, there's repeats of a lot of text. So that would be one of the major reasons why I just I'm not speaking about this text. I guess I could sum up at least two of them right now. One is that there's no story involved when it comes to things. And two, some of them are repeating. Um, and there's probably three more that I should be telling you the main reasons why, but I'm pretty sure there's five of them that I don't. I'm not going to go over these texts. I just keep repeating the same five things. I believe they're five. Okay, let's see here. Okay, now this is fulfilling the promises, and that's of bringing them back. So it was a prophet. It was prophesied about the descendants for Israel and the descendants for Judah coming back, and then he will send the righteous son from David and the righteous on earth for the righteous on earth. Pretty much fighting. It was being besieged, not that they were fighting. They weren't in a battle. Um, they had actually come into Jerusalem, and you can see that in all the remaining cities for Jerusalem. So they were already conquering into it. So they were besieging some of the cities instead of going in and just trying to battle every one of them. Again, here's a city that's been Israeli for a long time, um, and they still want to bring it up like it's well. I guess that never mind. Skip what I said. I just seen it, and I know that um, my mind wandered a little bit too much. Um, and no, it has to be his guards, not officials. Officials, there are going to be the story of who these officials are, and they're kind of like advisors. And Jehoiakim had them before him, and they had arrested Jeremiah or put him into a house to put him under guard. And then when Zedek became king, these advisors pretty much stayed around. They were kind of like passed on as the advisors, and they're using them as officials. But here I'm needing the word officials as guards into the hand, because that is what the story's going to end up saying, that when he fled with his guards or his men, they were captured. Now we're back to this other king, and here we have Baruch writing for Jeremiah while he's in captivity. So that was almost perfect timing there to let you know. Again, destruction. It wasn't a dictation. That would have been a word that um, was not used at that time. They thought the tongue talked, so it would have been, I'm putting it back to their words from the tongue of Jeremiah. So when you hear people saying I'm speaking in tongue, no, that just meant different languages, but their tongue was to talk. People to priest, because it's talking about his house. So it has to be priest, not anybody can go in there. It's not just Judah, it's Jerusalem, where his house is at. Um, Not pronounced, but prophesied, commanded as being told. So command is um, This guy's doing what Jeremiah said do, so it wasn't that he commanded him. And it wasn't a book, it was a scroll. Um, Scrolls at this time um, were kept by the good guys. The bad guys would take the scroll, change the words, and put them into a book form. And this guy here, when he heard every word, this guy was one of the good guys, and he went to the scribes where they were sitting and told them. Um, so here, it wasn't our officials; it was the scribes that he's talking to. Um, and when they heard what they said, they wanted him to bring him in and let him read what he wrote to us to make sure you've got the story actually right. They turned while they became frightened. They turned in fear, they became frightened. So there shouldn't be too much, just different words being used. I think I got the more correct ones. And here again, dictated tongue. Um, Here, I guess I better say that I'm adding this guy. This is because the text above has this guy and not this guy here. So I'm just trying to make sure that the same name goes through the text. And here it is again without it. So this is maybe it's right here because I can't remember the last two videos if this guy's name popped up. Maybe it didn't. And then this is what I'm saying, officials to advisors. Um, and here they are with this king here. And this is where he burned it because the guards were with him. Not who, but it was his guards were standing by him. Um, and that was a blazer. It was a fireplace. Um, Before would have been next to him. And here I'm putting this guy's name back in here. And he read 3 or 4 columns. And then he threw it into the fire that was burning. And the scroll was burned, not consumed, but burned. And those guys weren't afraid of it. After the king had burned the scroll, well, we know who it is. He just told about it above here. And he said, buy again another scroll and have it written again by all my prophecies. Um, Not their beast, but their flocks into captivity. Um, I put flocks. Um, it is true that they would have took the donkeys, they would have took everything. Um, but I'm thinking as a food supply to keep them um, alive, the food source being that the animals were just going to be let wild, um, the trainable ones that could be moved forward into captivity. I used as flocks because if it was an ox, that's too unruly of an animal. I don't know what other animals were around. They probably had horses by then, but I put the word flocks, meaning that the food sustaining ones were easier for them to take into captivity. So it could be, did they take all the animals? Well, they would take the horses, they would have took the donkeys. Um, so, um, but I'm just saying who would have been with the captives going up there would have been the flocks would also been able to move. Mm, yeah, I can't change I I'm just not seeing the word beast as into captivity. because it's kind of like they were to cease, but they're taking them with them. So I've got captivity here, not that they will cease. Um, just a second, I got to take this. They wouldn't answer back, so I don't know. Anyways, you will not you will not have one sitting on the throne. Because we know this is going to be the last, most likely last king. Um, as you can see, I've got here for the it's going to come to an end. So there's not going to be people aging. His I don't know if it I can't I think Zedek is actually his brother or a very elder son that goes on. I don't really have the breakdown of exactly the ages of these guys, but he will not age sitting on the throne or on your throne. So it's the word age means that we know that the story is going to send them to captivity, and there's going to be no more kingdom of or no nation of Judah. Then tomorrow they will kill you, and I had to recheck that, and yes, that tomorrow they will kill you and leave your dead body left in the field. And this is talking about what happened to this king. So, was it his brother that had him killed, or his son killed him? So, one of his sons killed him to get this throne. It's hard to say. I guess when I show you the breakdown and the order and how the stories clean up, you will see. Because here, a son from he was made king. He wasn't. It's And I guess this is kind of goes to what I was just saying, that when he died, was it his son that killed him? Well, you can see it was a planned killing because uh, was made king. It was like somebody else decided, like a group of people made him king. Okay, so the thing here is it had to be his son planning against him to kill him. And here's those advisors, not servants; they were advisors that did this, listen to his prophecies. Um, without leaving officials to advisors, officials to advisors. Yeah, because when he was arrested here and brought him to an advisor, only an advisor would an official. I'm saying as advisor because it has to have the capacity of the authority of the king to be able to do this, and they have to be close enough to the king to do what they're going to do. And here they had him beaten and then had him confined. But they noticed that they didn't send him to prison. They had this authority, but not really. And it's not a jail because down here they made the house. It was a house that he was going into. It was so he was confined there. They made it like a prison, okay, made it into a prison, but it wasn't a jail. The word jail is being used wrong here. So I used the word confined. Um, and then I had to add the advisors. And now, like I said, he died, and now we have Zedek as the king. So they kept the advisors. So you can almost say that the advisors helped get rid of Jehoiakim, their Jehoiakim. So J Jehoiakim, I don't know. I gotta shorten these words down. And he was chained. Not he was just placed in the courtyard. He was chained in the guardhouse. And I use the word chained here and here because later that's the way they're going to find Jeremiah. Um, the, the leader or the captain of the army came down and had his next in command go release Jeremiah, and it's I'm releasing you from this chain that's on your leg. So it's all about the chain here. And then advisors, they took him to a well and they let him down with ropes. And it's a well, not a cistern, but a well. And this guy here is a guard. I reduced his name down to this because he's going to be the one. He's going to the king's house right now because he heard that the advisors had put him into him, and he goes and he's telling the king here. He told the king that my lord. Now, see, here's a title, and this Adnan can be used either way as a title or a title for a man. So it's Lord and King because it's not a good guy. We're going to use the little letters here for King and Lord. The advisors were wicked, told them what they'd done. He didn't need to take 30 guys, so it took 3 guys under his authority to bring Jeremiah out. And now they're bringing him out of the well. And I needed to, we know who he's talking to, so it doesn't need to be kept saying who he is. Like here. And then he went back to this house, not the court, but the house of this guy that is from above. And then he had him brought to him. Then the king had him brought to him and asked him what's going on, what prophecies are. I just need to take these words here and put it here to make it read more easily and be understood quicker. And now here he's in a panic, and he just didn't swear. He tried to vow because he's communicating with him and he's promising him, you will not put me to death. And the king is not putting him to death. That he's really wanting to know from what is our Creator saying to him. He's finally waking up to the reason that, hey, they're at the door knocking, and we're in here together. He's seeking answers. What should he do? And he does tell him. They had to correct this because if you will go out to the officers of Babylon, that wasn't it. It was the Chaldeans that the king was. It looks like who had the eastern gate was the Chaldeans, and a lot of the because the captain of the guard, he's at the north gate coming into the city of Jerusalem is where he's at. So these guys have to be on, and why I'll get into this a little bit more, why it has to be Chaldeans. Because it seems like from the text is telling us that by the house of our Creator was where the King David's place to live was established there, and there's going to be a gate that was built hidden that's into the garden gate, and they're going to escape, and it's going to be the Chaldeans that chase him down. So the thing here is I'm making sure that if he goes out and he would have went out that gate, that he would have went to them, because down here somewhere, okay, yeah, here, where he's replying that I dread them. Okay, dreads the Jews. Well, he really is dreading the Chaldeans. Um, if you do not go out to their king. Um, I made it more specific and more true. These could have been good used as general words, but I'm using them more descriptive because they are the ones who are going to capture him. And it puts more placement of uh, what was on the battlefield, where they were located, who was who, where were they. Um, and again, it's these officials are really advisors. Um, they didn't cease; they stopped. Not the word conversation, because that's just too big of a word for their day and time. Remember, they didn't have a big vocabulary back then. So keeping the words to meaning how they would use them before is the way I try to keep the text real. Okay, now this text is here. It's a 4 verse, but this isn't what happened here. So it's better written um, after they they found them. Jerusalem was captured in the 9th year in the 10th month. Um, I don't know if I got captured correctly here, because it was in the 4th month. Jerusalem was going to be captured in the 9th year, because this text here goes with this laying siege, and then after a while, this is when it finally happened. The walls were breached, and and then the messengers came, not officials but messengers. That's who you send to do the negotiating. You start with messengers, for not the king but for the commander of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar seems to um, the text is going to tell us he's not there. He's more up in Damascus, or by the river by Damascus, and a lot of that you learn from battlefield arrangements of how they were coming and conquering. He wouldn't gone into Babylon, and they made shambles of it when they come through, conquering everything. Even though that they were land for Assyrians, that they, mm, you got to remember the Assyrians had conquered it down so far, but um, it's like Assyria didn't come down and really lay claim to the land. They more or less took the people into captivities and let it go. There's other text um, from the stories of what happened that they even took another king after who was it? Jose was O'Shea. He ruled for 9 years before they finally lost the last three um, uh, or tribes' lands. I'm getting off subject here, but it's and they had camped. They didn't just sit; they camped in the south gate. I thought I had it at the north gate. Going to have to hold off on that. But why did I put the south gate here? I guess that they would figure that they would flee south and not to the east, to the Arabs in the desert. They would flee to go to Egypt. So I'm thinking that's why I got the commander now at the south gate. And I didn't say truthfully that he was at the north gate. He would have been at the south gate. And that was hidden by the king's garden. And here, see, they have him going to Arabah. Now that would have been the desert, but I'm just going to say they went out towards the Jordan River, which means it would have been above the Dead Sea because Jerusalem would have been quicker that way. And see here, the Chaldeans pursued him and overtook him, not in the plains, because as it goes down like this, it becomes desert on both sides, and then only the river that had water was things that were flourishing. And it would have been it would have been the wilds by Jericho, the wild growth. Could I have changed this to wilderness by Jericho? Yes, I could have used wilderness by Jericho. But I think this is part of a prophecy, so I didn't change that world. And then they brought him to Nebuchadnezzar, and I'm replacing it for the king of Babylon. Now he's at this place here. Don't think that these cities are in the correct location when you go look for them. I wouldn't trust that. I think I have it later that he was by this place. I've done some editing when I've seen things cleaned up a little bit. Because more things come to you when you start cleaning text up, you start to see it. Yes, he wouldn't have been, he's so young that he wouldn't have been not one to come and do the fighting. I don't think he's 18 yet. And there he killed his sons, but he blinded him before his eyes. And this might be a village or a town, but when you read the story, like I said, this has got to be by the river of Damascus, somewhere there's fluid and plentifulness of fresh water. For the king would have had his own army around him. So, and there are no such thing as nobles. They got to be the officials of Judah. And there they found him not in fetters, but in chain, not of bronze. Bronze at that time, you could have broke them, brought to him in Babylon. So, also burned the king's house and the homes. And let's see here. And I've changed this guard's name for Nebuchadnezzar's guard, or a captain, a commander, had bodyguards. This is the commander's name of the one who surrounded Jerusalem. Okay, and it wasn't a captain. The thing here is he had bodyguards, not carried them, but walked them to Babylon. This story is not going to be in order because he's going to still be around here. Okay, here I needed to put in this verse. I overlooked this before I started going down here. I just put they couldn't make it, these people here. Commander left behind on the land to live. Now Nebuchadnezzar, whatever his name is, he was commanded him. He's Nebuchadnezzar. He's got a buddy that's a commander, and I'm shortening his name down to Nebu. was a commander, and he released Jeremiah. Didn't take Jeremiah. He was to release him when we go through here, and look after him and do nothing to him, rather deal with him as he says. So it can't be say take, it would be go release him and then do these things. The correct word is release at this time. And so then this guy here, sends his bodyguard, one of his guards, but it has to be close enough to him. So they said bodyguard. So I put here because there they've got him not as a commander, they got him like captain of bodyguards. No, that's no. We're correcting the text. We're not trying to confuse people here. And this is the courtyard cell that the king had placed him into the guardhouse here. But I think that's going to be later in the story. I'm not sure. And then this guy here is going to be made the governor. And it doesn't really say that until you read the text, why I can put this in and correct who this guy actually is. But he was chosen as the one to do set them back up. And our creator had him quickly killed, so we know that he is not really a good guy. Stayed, he lived among us, as if the writer was writing. He wouldn't say that the people, he would have said to us. Dread fears, that's pretty easy. Fall to that. That's pretty easy to understand. Now, but the word after needs to be actually describing, more descriptive than the word now. The bodyguard had released Jeremiah, and then he's talking to him because they learned that it was prophesied while you're locked up. So, again, just getting rid of this word. This place is actually a land. Had to add the king's name here. Not would prefer, but want is a quick and easier way to say it. Judah had to be changed to the land, and then it's our governor. He's asking who is over, but it's actually governor. When we get down a little farther, we understand that they appointed a governor and didn't give him gift. They gave him silver, ration was food, gave him silver, and then let him go. And then he went to the city of Mizpah and to that guy. Now, here we go. Nope. But they have the word appointed. So I guess maybe I appointed over the land, which is a governor. So I guess I'm designated him as the governor, and they were using the word over, governor. And the governor here is kind of over Judah area, okay? Not over the Israeli side or Israeli nation was at. But Judah was just conquered. This is where he's at, and only over them. Now here's three guys that are going to be like a supporting team. They've gathered together. They had not been captured. They were not carried away. So, these guys have to be good guys. And the men that were following them were true believers, or not, or they were truly following our Creator to make it without going into captivity. So here, this guy's trying to tell him not to be afraid of them, of who's after serving them, or to be near the Chaldeans, because they were still worried about the Chaldeans coming and doing what they wanted to do. They were a very fierce killers. They were to be feared because they didn't take. It seems that they were um, didn't care about taking life or who they killed, or they would have slaughtered everybody, and then just took the goods to live by. Um, and to serve the king here, not just king of Babylon. Put his name here. Govern before the Chaldeans. Whoever come to us, whoever returns, we're talking about those now that are going to start returning because the war is over, and those have been taken captive. Ezra, which I just did, if you watch that first, you'll be understanding some of this stuff. A lot of it, why am I going backwards? Because the truth seems to be that way. There's so much editing that needs to be taken into understanding what I'm doing here. The names weren't used in the last books, or the last of whatever was written. So as I'm going backwards, the text is easier to edit than double editing and triple editing. Every time I learn another book, go together and mesh them, and okay, got to clean all these names up. Going backwards is really helpful in that category. So if you don't do it like when I'm doing it, you are going to be really confused. And we know where they're coming from. They're only Egypt. There's only two places to go, was to Babylon or to Egypt. The desert was by Arabs, and they were more or less raiders, and the Chaldeans lived up closer towards they might have even overtaken the upper part of Saudi Arabia and then come into, well, I guess the map would show better. Whoops. Yeah, maybe I'll try to get a map here to show what I'm talking about here, but I'll probably forget. Anyways, this one's got to stop.